Welcome, dear listeners, to another chilling descent into the forgotten annals of history on the shadow behind you. I am your guide through the veil, the voice that unearths the buried horrors of bloodlines long cursed, institutions steeped in malevolence, and families that vanish into the ether, only to claw their way back from the grave. Tonight, we venture into the shadowed fringes of America's fractured heartland, where the echoes of cannon fire from the Civil War still reverberate through the Ozark Hills. Our tale unfolds in the year 1866, in the scarred town of Springfield, Missouri, a place where the line between civilization and savagery blurred like blood seeping into parched earth. Imagine, if you will, the acrid scent of gunpowder lingering in the air, mingling with the rot of unburied grievances. The war has ended, but its ghosts prowl the streets. Springfield, once a bustling hub on the edge of the frontier, now bears the wounds of division. Homes torched by bushwhackers, families torn asunder by loyalties to Union Blue or Confederate Gray. Pioneers, those wary souls chasing the promise of gold in the West or fertile lands beyond the Mississippi, trickle through like blood from a fresh cut. They come on foot, on horseback, in creaking wagons laden with dreams and desperation. But not all who pass through Springfield emerge on the other side. Our story centers on the Whitaker family, or what remains of them. A clan whispered about in taverns and around campfires, their names synonymous with a hospitality that hides teeth. Led by Elias Whitaker, a gaunt figure with eyes like bottomless wells, they dwell in a ramshackle cabin on the outskirts, where the dense woods swallow screams and the nearby trails beckon like open veins. Elias, a former Confederate guerrilla hardened by the atrocities of guerrilla warfare, his wife Miriam, whose beauty masks a feral hunger, and their children, twisted offspring raised on tales of survival at any cost. They are the predators in this tale, luring the lost with promises of shelter, a warm meal, and directions to safer paths. But beneath their welcoming fire lies a pit of unspeakable depravity, the consumption of human flesh, a gruesome secret born from the war's famine and the frontier's unforgiving maw. Picture the scene. Dusk falls over the Ozarks, the sun bleeding red across the horizon, as if the land itself is wounded. A lone pioneer, dust-caked and hollow-eyed, stumbles upon the Whitaker homestead. The air is thick with the aroma of stew simmering over an open flame, rich, savory, almost intoxicating after days of hardtack and deprivation. Elias emerges from the shadows, his voice a low rumble like thunder rolling distant. "Stranger, you look half-starved. Come, share our fire. The road ahead is treacherous, but tonight you're safe with us." The traveler, grateful, accepts, unaware that the stew's secret ingredient is the remnants of the last wanderer who sought refuge here. As the night deepens, the family's eyes gleam in the firelight, watching, waiting. Whispers slither through the cabin walls, Miriam's soft lullabies to the children, masking the sharper sounds of knives being whetted. The pioneer feels a prickling at the nape of his neck, a sense that something watches from the tree line, but exhaustion dulls his instincts. By morning, he is gone, not continued on his journey, but absorbed into the family's larder, his bones picked clean and buried shallow in the loamy soil. This is no mere ghost story, listeners. It is a descent into the abyss of human nature, where the horrors of war twist men into monsters. In 1866, Springfield was a cauldron of chaos. Outlaws roamed free, justice was swift and often vigilante, and the disappearances of travelers were chalked up to bandits or the wilds. But the Whitakers were something darker, a family that feasted on the flesh of the forsaken, their crimes veiled by the post-war fog. How many vanished into their clutches? Dozens, perhaps, their screams echoing unheard in the hollows. As we delve deeper, feel the chill seep into your bones. The shadows lengthen, and the tale unfolds like a shroud unwrapping a corpse. What drove the Whitakers to such abomination? Was it the starvation that gripped Missouri during the war's guerrilla raids, where farms were razed and bellies emptied? Or something primal, a curse woven into their bloodline from the frontier's earliest days? Stay with me, for in the shadow of Springfield, the line between hunter and hunted dissolves, and the true horror is not the act, but the hunger that never sates. Let us begin our journey into the heart of this gruesome legend, where the past reaches out with cold, bony fingers to pull you under. The Whittaker family awaits, and so we step into the mist-shrouded paths of 1866 Springfield, where the Whittaker family's shadow looms large. Elias Whittaker was not always a monster, or perhaps he was, and the war merely peeled away the veneer of humanity. Born in the backwoods of Kentucky in the 1820s, Elias migrated to Missouri as a young man, drawn by the promise of land and liberty. But liberty came at a price. By the time the Civil War erupted, Elias had wed Miriam, a woman of fierce beauty and fiercer temperament, her eyes holding the wild gleam of the untamed Ozarks. Together, they scratched out a living on a plot of land just beyond Springfield's borders. Raising 3 children, young Josiah, barely 12 but already hardened like old leather, Eliza, 10, with a doll made from corn husks that she whispered secrets to, and the youngest, little Caleb, whose innocent face belayed a curiosity for the macabre. The war transformed them. Missouri, that fractured border state, became a battlefield of brothers against brothers. Elias joined the Confederate bushwhackers, those shadowy guerrillas who struck from the shadows, ambushing Union supply lines and torching farms loyal to the North. He rode with men like Bloody Bill Anderson, learning the art of swift, merciless violence. The raids left scars, villages burned, civilians hanged from trees like grim fruit, and famine stalking the land as crops failed and livestock was requisitioned or slaughtered. By war's end in 1865, Elias returned to his cabin a hollow shell. The family had endured sieges. Union troops once ransacked their home, leaving them with nothing but echoes and emptiness. Miriam, pregnant with Caleb during the worst of it, had miscarried twice before, her body racked by hunger. The children grew up on stories of survival, how Elias had once eaten boot leather to stave off death, how Miriam had boiled roots that tasted of dirt and despair. But in the winter of 1865, as snow blanketed the Ozarks and game vanished, desperation birthed something unholy. It began with a stranger, a Union deserter, ragged and frostbitten, knocking on their door one blizzard night. Elias, his Confederate grudges festering like open wounds, invited him in. The fire crackled, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Miriam served a thin broth, her smile tight. As the man warmed, he spoke of heading west, to California's gold fields, away from the war's remnants. The family listened, their eyes hungry, not for his tales, but for him. That night, as the deserter slept, Elias crept upon him with an axe, the blade whispering through the air before embedding in flesh. The man's cry was brief, swallowed by the storm. Blood pooled on the dirt floor, warm and metallic in the cold air. Miriam, unflinching, helped drag the body to the smokehouse. "West not," she murmured, her voice a serpent's hiss. The children watched from the shadows, Josiah's small hands trembling as he held a lantern high. They stripped the corpse, the knife slicing through skin with a wet, tearing sound. The meat was tough, but cooked slow over the fire, it filled their bellies like nothing had in months. Caleb, too young to understand, gnawed on a bone, his face smeared red. Eliza hummed a lullaby as she worked, her doll propped against a bloodied stump. Elias justified it. The war took everything. This is retribution, survival. But as the flesh melted on their tongues, a dark ecstasy took hold, a forbidden sustenance that awakened cravings deeper than hunger. Word spread subtly among the desperate. The Whittakers offered shelter to travelers. In the taverns of Springfield, where men drowned their post, war sorrows in whiskey. Whispers circulated, head south of town, past the old mill. They'll give you a bed for the night. Pioneers, many former soldiers or families fleeing Reconstruction's grip, heeded the call. The trails were perilous. Bandits, wild animals, disease. But the promise of hospitality lured them like moths to flame. The second victim was a family of 3, a widower and his 2 daughters. Wagon broken on the muddy road. Elias flagged them down, his face etched with feigned concern. "Come, rest at our place. We'll mend your wheel come morn." The cabin welcomed them with the scent of baking bread, Miriam's specialty, laced with herbs to mask other flavors. That night, as the guests slumbered, the Whitakers struck. Josiah, initiated now, wielded a knife for the first time, his boy's hands slick with blood. The daughter's screams pierced the night, but the woods absorbed them. The feast lasted days, flesh salted and smoked, bones ground for broth. The wagon was dismantled, parts buried or sold in town under cover of darkness. Elias grew bolder, venturing into Springfield to scout prey. The town square, still buzzing from the infamous shootout the previous year, was a fertile ground. Men gathered, sharing tales of the Wild West dawning, quick draws and lawlessness. Elias blended in, his ears attuned to talk of westward journeys. By spring of 1866, the disappearances mounted. A prospector from Illinois, bound for Colorado's mines, vanished after boasting of his route. A pair of brothers, ex-Union soldiers, never reached their kin in Kansas. Whispers turned to rumors. Something's amiss on the southern trails. But in the chaos of Reconstruction, with outlaws like Jesse James beginning their reigns of terror, such losses were dismissed. Sheriffs, overwhelmed, chalked them up to bandits or the frontier's toll. The Whitakers refined their craft. Miriam wove charms from victims' hair, hanging them like wind chimes that tinkled ominously in the breeze. Josiah developed a taste for the ritual, carving symbols into bones, crude echoes of ancient rites he'd heard from slaves during the war. Eliza spoke to her doll as if it were the souls of the consumed, her voice a chilling mimicry. Caleb, innocent yet tainted, played games with finger bones, rolling them like dice. Tension built as summer approached. Elias dreamed of the dead, faces rising from stew pots, eyes accusing. Miriam soothed him with touches that turned feverish, their union fueled by the forbidden. The children, warped by the acts, began to see the world as prey, but outside the noose tightened subtly. A traveler's kin in St. Louis inquired. Letters arriving at the post office. A local trapper stumbled upon a shallow grave, bones gnawed clean. Yet the lures continued. One sweltering evening, a group of 5 pioneers, hardened men from the east, arrived, drawn by tales of the Whitakers' generosity. As they sat around the fire, sharing whiskey, Elias eyed their sturdy builds, calculating the yield. The night air hummed with cicadas, masking the family's sharpening blades. As the fire's embers glowed like dying eyes, the 5 pioneers laughed heartily, unaware that their host's smiles hid fangs. Elias poured more whiskey, laced with a sedative from Miriam's herb garden, poppy extract bartered from a traveling apothecary. The men grew drowsy, their stories slurring into silence. One by one, they slumped, the cabin filling with the heavy rhythm of snores. The attack was swift, a choreography of horror honed by practice. Elias struck first, his axe cleaving the leader's skull with a sickening crack. Blood sprayed, warm and sticky, painting the walls in abstract patterns. Josiah pounced on another, his knife plunging into the man's throat, gurgling protests drowned in crimson. Miriam, agile as a cat, dispatched a third with a hammer blow to the temple, the thud echoing like a drumbeat of doom. Eliza and Caleb, the young ones, held lanterns high, their faces illuminated in grotesque relief, eyes wide with a mix of fear and exhilaration. The fourth man stirred, groggy but alert, fumbling for his pistol. He fired wildly, the shot grazing Elias's arm, drawing a hiss of pain. Chaos erupted. The man bolted for the door, but Miriam tripped him, her nails raking his face. Josiah finished him with savage stabs, the boy's grunts primal. The last pioneer awoke to the carnage, screaming as the family descended like wolves. His pleas fell on deaf ears. Elias silenced him with a chokehold, the life ebbing as veins bulged. The cleanup was methodical. Bodies dragged to the smokehouse, the air thick with the coppery tang of blood and the acrid smoke of the fire. Knives flashed under moonlight, filtering through cracks, flesh parted from bone with wet, ripping sounds. Miriam hummed a hymn, her voice ethereal amid the gore, as if sanctifying the act. The children helped, their small hands efficient now, stacking meat like cordwood. Bones were boiled clean, marrow sucked out with slurping relish. But this feast came at a cost. The gunshot had echoed through the night, and though the woods were dense, Springfield was not far. Dawn brought unease. Elias bandaged his wound, the pain a nagging reminder of vulnerability. Whispers of the missing grew louder in town. A sheriff's deputy, a stern man named Harlan Crow, began poking around. Crow, a Union veteran with a limp from Wilson's Creek, had lost kin to bushwhackers. He suspected outlaws preying on travelers, but the pattern? Disappearances without robbery, nagged at him. The Whitakers adapted, venturing farther for prey. Elias rode into the hills, luring a lone trapper with tales of hidden springs. The man, grizzled and wary, accepted shelter only to meet his end in the night. His pelt collection was sold, his flesh sustaining the family through lean weeks. But paranoia crept in. Eliza claimed her doll spoke warnings, voices of the dead foretelling doom. Caleb had nightmares, waking with cries that Miriam silenced with morsels of special meat. Summer waned into autumn, leaves turning blood, red as if mirroring the family's sins. A turning point came with a young couple, newlyweds from Illinois, honey-haired and hopeful, wagon-laden with heirlooms. They arrived at dusk, the wife heavy with child. Miriam's eyes softened momentarily, a flicker of maternal instinct, but hunger won. That night, as the couple slept, the assault began. The husband fought fiercely, wounding Josiah with a boot knife. Blood flowed, family blood this time, and rage consumed Elias. He butchered the man savagely, axes rising and falling in a frenzy. The wife awoke to horror, her screams piercing. Miriam hesitated, but Elias commanded, "No waste." The deed was done, the unborn child a tragic afterthought. This act broke something in Miriam. She wept silently as they prepared the bodies, the cabin filled with the scent of despair. Josiah's wound festered, fever setting in, his delirium babbling secrets. Word reached Springfield, a wagon found abandoned, bloodstains on the canvas. Deputy Crow assembled a posse, hard men, war-scarred, armed with rifles and resolve. They tracked southward, following rumors to the Whitaker homestead. As twilight fell, the family sensed the approach. Dogs barking, an unnatural stillness in the air. The confrontation was inevitable. The posse surrounded the cabin, Crow's voice booming, "Elias Whitaker, come out! We know what you've done!" Inside, panic reigned. Elias barred the door, rifles loaded. Miriam clutched the children, her face a mask of defiance. Shots rang out, bullets splintering wood, glass shattering. Josiah, weak but fierce, fired back, wounding a deputy. The siege lasted hours, smoke from torches filling the night. Elias roared challenges, his voice echoing war cries. But numbers prevailed. A fire arrow ignited the roof, flames licking greedily. The family burst out, guns blazing. Elias fell first, riddled with bullets, his body twitching in the dirt. Miriam charged, knife in hand, only to be cut down. The children, Josiah fighting like a demon, Eliza clutching her doll, Caleb crying, met similar fates, mercy absent in the posse's eyes. As flames consumed the cabin, the posse discovered the smokehouse horrors, bones, salted flesh, evidence of unspeakable feasts. Revulsion swept them, some vomited, others prayed. Crow, grim-faced, ordered the bodies burned. The sight salted like a biblical curse. The Whitakers vanished into ash, but their shadow lingered. Or did it? Rumors persisted. Sightings of spectral figures on the trails, luring travelers with ghostly hospitality. Bones unearthed years later, whispers in the wind. The gruesome tale ended, but the horror echoed. To truly grasp the chilling essence of the Whitaker tale, we must peel back the layers of history, blending fact with the fog of folklore that shrouds post-Civil War Missouri. Springfield in 1866 was no idyllic frontier town. It was a crucible forged in the fires of conflict, where the scars of battle bred desperation and depravity. Let us explore this eerie backdrop, where real horrors lent authenticity to legends like ours. Missouri's role in the Civil War was one of profound division. As a border slave state that remained in the Union, it became a hotbed of internal strife, with over 200 engagements, more than any state save Virginia and Tennessee. Families split along loyalty lines, neighbors turning rifles on one another. Springfield itself was a strategic prize, witnessing battles like Wilson's Creek in 1861, the first major clash west of the Mississippi, where Confederate forces clashed with Union troops in a bloody melee that left thousands dead or wounded. The city changed hands multiple times, its streets echoing with cannon fire and cries of the dying. By 1863, another battle raged in Springfield, where Confederate General John S. Marmaduke's forces attacked but were repelled, solidifying Union control. Homes were burned, hospitals overflowed with the maimed, and the town square became a grim tableau of executions and skirmishes. Post-war in 1865, Springfield birthed the Wild West era, with the nation's first recorded quick-draw shootout Wild Bill Hickok versus Davis Tutt, a poker dispute ending in Tutt's death from 75 yards away, his body crumpling in the square amid cheers and gasps. This event symbolized the lawlessness that permeated the region, where justice was personal and swift. The guerrilla warfare that defined Missouri's war years bred men like Elias Whittaker, bushwhackers, pro-Confederate irregulars such as Bloody Bill Anderson and William Quantrill, conducted raids of terror, sacking towns, massacring civilians, and leaving famine in their wake. Anderson's gang, infamous for the Centralia massacre, scalped and mutilated victims, instilling a culture of brutality. Many, like Jesse James, transitioned from guerrillas to outlaws post-war, robbing banks and trains in a continuation of their vendettas. In 1866, Missouri teamed with such figures the James Younger gang began their spree, fueled by resentment against Reconstruction and Union sympathizers. Social conditions were dire. Farms razed by General Order No. 11, which depopulated entire counties, leading to starvation and displacement. This environment of scarcity and violence provides fertile ground for tales of cannibalism. While the Whittakers are folklore, real frontier cannibals haunt history. The Donner Party in 1846-47, trapped in the Sierra Nevada, resorted to eating the dead amid blizzards, their story a cautionary whisper of the West perils. Closer to Missouri, Levi Boone Helm, the Kentucky cannibal, born in 1828 and raised in Missouri's Lincoln County, committed his first murder there in 1850 before fleeing west. Helm, a serial killer, confessed to eating victims during harsh winters, boasting, "Many's the poor devil I've killed at one time or another, and the time has been that I've been obliged to feed on some of 'em." Hanged in Montana in 1864, his Missouri roots tie him to the region's dark underbelly. Alfred Packer, the Colorado cannibal, in 1874 led a party into the Rockies, emerging alone after allegedly killing and eating his companions. Though post-1866, his tale echoes frontier desperation, much like Boone Helm's Missouri-connected atrocities. Native American tribes sometimes practiced ritual cannibalism, but European settlers viewed it with horror, yet resorted to it in extremis. Culturally, post-war Missouri blended Southern traditions with frontier grit. Folklore abounded tales of haunted battlefields, where ghosts of Wilson's Creek wandered, their wails mimicking the wind. Outlaw legends romanticized figures like Belle Starr, raised in Carthage, Missouri, who turned to crime after the war bankrupted her family. The Lost Cause narrative glorified Confederates, portraying outlaws as heroes against Yankee oppression. In this context, the Whittakers emerge as an amalgamation, a family cursed by war's famine, embodying the era's moral decay. Disappearances were common. Trails like the Butterfield Overland Mail Route near Springfield saw travelers vanish to bandits or the wilds. Folklore filled the gaps. Stories of man-eaters in the Ozarks, perhaps inspired by Helm or the Donner legacy, whispered around campfires to warn the unwary. Educationally, this tale illuminates the human cost of war, how conflict erodes civility, turning survivors into predators. Missouri's internal reconstruction in 1866, with Republicans disenfranchising ex-Confederates, bred resentment, fueling crime waves. Racial tension simmered, with freed slaves facing backlash, adding layers of cultural trauma. Yet the eerie authenticity lies in the blend. Fact skeletons clothed in folklore's flesh, creating a haunting verisimilitude that makes the Whittakers feel real, their hunger a metaphor for the era's insatiable voids. Delving into the abyss of the Whittaker legend, we uncover not just a tale of gore, but a mirror reflecting humanity's darkest facets. Symbolically, the family's cannibalism embodies the devouring nature of war, how conflict consumes societies, leaving survivors to feast on remnants. In 1866 Missouri, the Civil War's aftermath was a psychological wasteland. Veterans like Elias, scarred by guerrilla atrocities, internalized violence turning inward to family units that became microcosms of depravity. Psychologically, cannibalism taps universal fears of taboo violation. Freudian analysis might see it as regression to primal instincts, the eddy overpowering the superego amid trauma. The Whitakers, starved literally and metaphorically, revert to savagery. Elias's axe, a phallic symbol of dominance, Miriam's nurturing twisted into nurturing death. The children represent corrupted innocence, their participation a chilling commentary on how trauma perpetuates across generations. Thematically, the story connects to cultural trauma. Missouri's divided loyalties mirrored national fractures, with bushwhacker legacies breeding outlaws who symbolized resistance. The Whitakers, as Confederate remnants, embody the lost cause, a hunger for vengeance that consumes the self. Human nature's duality shines through hospitality masking predation, a frontier trope where trust is fatal. Universal fears of the other loom large. The pioneers as outsiders, devoured by the land's natives. This echoes colonial anxieties where the wilderness devours civilization. Gender dynamics add layers. Miriam's role subverts maternal archetypes, her feasts a perversion of providing, highlighting women's unseen burdens in war. Intellectually, the tale probes survival ethics. When does necessity justify abomination? In frontier lore like the Donner Party, cannibalism questions morality's fragility. The Whitakers' escalation, from desperation to ritual, illustrates addiction to power. The taste of flesh, a metaphor for war's intoxicating brutality. Ominously, it warns of history's cycles post-war chaos breeding monsters, a pattern seen in modern conflicts. The lingering shadow suggests unresolved trauma haunts collectives. The disappeared, a symbol of erased narratives. In essence, the Whitakers haunt because they reflect us. The potential for monstrosity in all, waiting for hunger to awaken. As our tale draws to its chilling close, the ashes of the Whitaker cabin settle like a shroud over Springfield's scarred earth. The family, consumed by flames as they consumed others, leaves a void. A haunting question, did their hunger truly die with them? In the years following 1866, travelers whispered of ghostly yawns, flickering lights in the woods, the scent of stew on the wind, drawing the unwary to forgotten graves. This gruesome legend lingers because it echoes truths too dark to face. The war's legacy of devouring souls, the frontier's more swallowing dreams. The Whitakers, forgotten bloodline of horror, remind us that shadows lurk behind every welcoming fire. Dear listeners, as you turn off the light, remember the past hungers. What shadows trail you tonight?